I'm a co-founder and managing partner here at TradeIdeas. I'm very privileged and thankful to be addressing you this first Trade of the Week webinar of the year. And I normally am not in front of customers, but it's a good thing that I am now. And I say that because I do a lot of the work in the background with the larger financial community and institutions that use TradeIdeas and use TradeIdeas to provide to their customers. And so I manage a lot of our relationships and try to and try always actively to get TradeIdeas out in the hands of institutions and people who can distribute our tool to others. So I'm very pleased to be in front of you today. I'm very happy to see the mix of people here, both 40% of you that don't have TradeIdeas. We're going to learn a little bit about what the basics are. The 60% of you that do use TradeIdeas, there's so much to this tool that you're always going to learn a little bit more, and you'll learn a little bit through my lens, through the way that I deal with the technology, having seen its evolution over 13 years to this point. And so I'll walk through that. We'll all learn a little something. I'm also pleased that half of you have the odds maker and the higher capabilities of AI and our AI investment engine named Holly. And for those of you who don't, again, Scott will come back and have quite a bit of a bag of goodies for everyone to look at, both at the midpoint and at the end of our webinar. So I'll set the scene a little bit further. I'm sitting here with you now from Atlanta, Georgia, in my office. I have a large glass of Pinot Noir, and I'm ready to take you on this journey, into TradeIdeas and the technology, and hopefully you'll get something new that you haven't learned before about what we're trying to do. So at TradeIdeas, our mission is constantly to level the playing field and provide what has previously been in the realm of highly capitalized hedge funds with PhDs doing programming. We've taken technology out of that world and even beyond it and brought it to individuals in order to make the stock market and its understanding easier to navigate in a modern world that we live in with an enormous amount of volatility and all the aggregations in the stock market, flash crashes and high-frequency traders. It's enough to make anyone think that the deck is stacked against them. But TradeIdeas has always existed there to cut through and level the playing field and bring the ability to capture alpha, in as simple and straightforward a means as possible. And so over the last year, we've done even more work in fulfilling that mission by each week coming up with a trade of the week. And that's as an example that we send out to the world, uniquely customized, so to appeal to readers, investors, active traders, with an idea that has more legs to it than just 5 minutes or an hour or even a day. It's more of a longer-term view where we tune in our TradeIdeas to look for these longer terms. So we're not a simple scanning tool for just active investors. We're ones that you can modulate the view to see longer-term opportunities as well as very short-term. So what you're looking at in my screen that hopefully everyone can see is the layout of our flagship product, which is TradeIdeas Pro. And what you're seeing is, from left to right, our kind of our Netflix approach to displaying the market, where we give our customers of TradeIdeas Pro the ability to select from various channels that have themes behind them, that have certain context as to what you're going to see when you click on those channels. Everything from channels that are focused on specific sectors to those channels that span several sectors, that give a motif, a certain theme to the market. These are what appear here on the left. We have everything from the pre-market to social media, to stocks that are surging, to defense stocks, China and China Internet, tech titans, so on and so forth. And so our customers get a sense of, if they're looking for a particular realm in which to trade, and I use all of these at different times of the month, different times in the quarter. I especially like to use the earnings channel that we have in here. But by far, since we've come out with our latest innovation, I would say the most popular channel is our AI investment engine that we call Holly. And the reason why we call it Holly, it's a play on the fact that what this technology does and its ability to find and capture alpha is literally nothing short than the Holy Grail, but we call it the Holly. If you ask me her last name is Grail. And it's this ability, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later if we need to, its ability to do the heavy lifting of what a lot of our customers have done in the past. That is, the research in looking at what strategies are working, what trading plan can I apply against these strategies to find the alpha. Holly does and crunches hundreds of thousands of calculations overnight to arrive at a list every day that says, in her estimation, based on an analysis that it's done and weighted across a dozen variables, these are the 6 or so strategies, sometimes 10, sometimes 3, that will be optimal for today's trading. And then the ideas that come from that are yours to evaluate, as if you were talking to an analyst that had done as much of its homework overnight while you slept, done all the homework for you. And in that regard, there's no better co-pilot to have than someone who's giving you not just the idea, but the fully formed trading plan behind that idea. That is, this is how long you should hold this idea. Sometimes it's the entire market session. Sometimes it's just a half an hour. So we'll get into that. But this particular webinar is about the trade of the week, and so I want to go into a little bit about how we come up with our weekly email and how we find these particular ideas. So, and this actually steps outside of what Holly does for us, and I concentrate more on what you're seeing in the 3 windows I'm expanding here to the right. But to finish my thought, you have the navigation bar from TradeIdeas Pro, the 2 sets of charts that we're going to refer to quite a bit in our time together tonight. One's a 5-minute chart, the other one's a daily chart. And then below this is what the trades today that that Holly, our AI engine, took today. And then I've got 2 various windows that I have pinned to all my layouts that involve earnings. But over to the right, the rightmost section of the space here is devoted to the windows that we normally look to for our trades of the week. So as I said, first of all, these windows are more accustomed to looking at long-range opportunities that have a slower decay rate and a longer shelf life. And it's from these views of the market, of the universe, that we pull our trade of the week ideas from. Let me go through each of them, and if you have any questions, by all means, you can ask as we go through this, and we'll get to as many as we can. Okay. So again, I want to make sure everyone can see my screen. Is that correct? Can you give me a quick yes that everything's good? Okay. I'm getting one person who can't, but everyone else seems to be okay. Okay. So I'll continue. Okay, great. Thanks. So we'll go through these, and I'll go through the setups and the configurations behind each of these windows. The first one that we have here is called the Trend Change Lubricant Factor. And quite simply, when I right-click in any window within TradeIdeas, I quickly get to a list of options that do various things. The most important one is the first one listed, which is the configuration screen. When I click on that, I'm presented with our list of how this universe is created, and that's done by just throwing a list of the 7 filters that we have that define what this universe is. All the stocks that appear in this window match the criteria that these filters are applying against the whole universe of stocks in the U.S. and Canadian exchanges. So for instance, this universe is looking at all the stocks that have a maximum gap of 3 volatility bars. I'll explain that in a moment if it's needed. That also have a max price of 1,000, so every stock that's less than 1,000 is in this universe. As well as, and this is key, with this window that this universe is looking at is every stock that has, for the year, it is positioned in the range over the past year of the bottom 35%. So the 35th percentile and no higher. So all of these stocks are at the bottom third of their yearly range. And that's meant to, obviously what this window is starting to look for, you get a hint with this critical filter, is that we're looking for opportunities in stocks that have been beaten down, that are at the bottom end of the bottom third of their yearly range, and now doing something from that starting point. What are they doing? Well, they've got at least a minimum dollar volume of, let's see, of $1 million? No, $500,000. 500,000, sorry. Yep. And they have the minimum change from yesterday's close is 1%. So these stocks have moved up 1% from yesterday's close to the moment that you see them on this list. They have a min price of $1. And most importantly, over the last month, the last 20 days, the last 20 trading days, they're in the top 1%, the 99th percentile of their 20-day range. So for the year, they're down in the bottom third. But over the last 20 days, they're at the very top, the top end of that range. That's a nice, from this alone, you should have a clear idea of what every chart from this universe is going to look like. And as we go through these, you will clearly start to see, if we look, we're going to look at the 5-minute, we're going to look at the daily, but we look at the month, all these would have, and if we looked at them over 3 months, we would see all of them having a kind of reverse J, like it's been on the bottom, it's starting to move up. And we want to catch these ones that have already proven on a trend basis, they're a confirmation that now they're in a, in an accumulation mode. They finished the distribution mode, they're in an accumulation mode. So those are the filters. Now the way TradeIdeas works with what we call our top lists is, given that universe, I can create any range of columns. I can pull information from our whole inventory of filters. I just showed you 7 that make up this universe, but there's over 100 filters and that you could be choosing from. And some of those can be displayed as columns, where the value of each stock appears as a column. That's what we have here. And we have quite a bit, if I scroll here to the right, about what data points for every stock can be shown as a column. So let's look at our first one here that came through, that AKS. So when I click on this, again, on the 5-minute and on the daily shows a lot of volatility, and over the last couple of days, the last 5 days, or on this chart, the last 5 or so days, the stock has taken an uptick. And then within today, we see what it did. By the way, the pink that you see is the pre-market and the post-market around each market session. All right, so let's look at EVHC. This is Envision Healthcare Holdings. CCO. Again, at the time, in order to make this list, it's got to be, and this one, the last 2 I just showed actually had a gap down over the last couple of days and have started to build its way back up. And at the time, in order to be on this list, it's got to be in that top 1% over its 20-day range, which explains why it appears, why the stock has a either a large, in this case, significant jump, movement up that we're looking for, that we're looking to see catch and then ride. So here's Walmart. Let's look at Walmart. Again, a nice recent move up where we're trying to climb on and ride this trend. All right, and it's from here where we got, was it CH? RX? No, CMRX. That's not it. Scott, what was the, actually what I'm getting confused with is I'm going to look at Maureen's suggestion here, THRX, but that's actually a different strategy. We'll look at that in a second. Let me finish looking at the rest of these. This is great. There's Medallion Financial. Here's Taxi. This is a stock that I actually loved shorting a couple of, was it last 18 months ago, when Uber was much more in the headlines. This was a stock that was taking a hit every time Uber made more and more headlines. But here it is with a small uptrend. Right. So again, the views in using trade ideas outside of our recent innovations, outside of the artificial intelligence and Holly, this tool is meant for those that want to dig deeper and either use examples that we have or test hypotheses in order to think, I have a theory about the way the market behaves. I want to see all the stocks that match this behavior, and then I want to be able to use the odds maker and come up with a trading plan for each of these ideas. So in here, working across some of these columns, I'll just go through quickly. You've got obviously price. You have a smart stop as to what's the if the stock moves beyond this certain range, should you be thinking about reconsidering the trade, getting out of the trade? What is the change from yesterday's close? In this case, it's 11 cents at the time of this list. What's the dollar volume for the stock? What's the change over the last 30 minutes? The change versus yesterday's close, in this case 1.5%. This is an interesting one, and you'll notice that this column, the next column that we have here, is indented. The reason why it's indented is because the whole list is sorted based on this column. And in this case, it's the percent of the float traded. Now, this is an interesting concept that's important to understand if you want to understand how it is that we find the trades of the week from these universes. And this comes from, again, a little more background on myself. Dan Merkin, who usually does the webinar, is probably the guru and the most, certainly the employee and partner at the firm that has the most experience trading. Way back when the market was fractions and when people were accessing the NASDAQ through as a SOES band, as the short order exchange system. And it's from enormous changes in the markets from those times in the early 90s to where we are today. That's the trading intuitiveness, trading intelligence that's kept Dan, in the game and building a technology meant to serve literally the way, at the base, Trade Ideas is meant to service everybody looking to level a playing field, but at its core, it's looking to fulfill what's the best way, what are the best conditions to make a trade, and that's how we've built the technology. And so Dan, this is one of Dan's key points here about finding potential energy in the stock. Well, to find potential energy, you need to understand float, and float is the number of shares that are available to trade. And it's interesting once you start looking at float and how you might see potential moves and their ability to be larger in certain stocks versus others. So when we talk about the percent of float traded, the larger this number, and let me quickly jump down to what this float on this third window at the bottom means. We see higher numbers in terms of how this is sorted. So a percent of float traded of 39, 40% means that a large number of the float is traded. It's often associated with stocks that have a smaller float. So you take the example of Intel versus one of the smaller healthcare recent IPOs or smaller healthcare stocks that have a small float. For Intel, you have over 1 billion shares that are traded. That's the float. The available float of shares available for Intel is over 1 billion. And so any given day, there's about 20 million or so shares that are traded in that stock. But take a small health tech company or medical device medical device company, you could have those companies with a float of 6 million. And so that's a small base of which the shares that are traded can often represent a larger percent of the float. And what that means is that it's almost like a game of musical chairs. There's more of a chance of a large volume person, a hedge fund, a mutual fund, a portfolio manager, moving into that stock and making more of a wave as they jump into that pool versus jumping into the ocean that is Intel, with its billion shares that are available. I jump in the ocean, I make a small ripple. I jump into my pool, I get a cannonball. I get a much bigger ripple after making my my entrance. So that's what float means. And when we look for that ability to say, not only are we configuring the universe to find the stocks that have a longer shelf life, a slower decay rate, that have the ability to last a couple of days or a week, we're looking for what's the potential energy. And one of the ways we find that is by looking at the float, looking at the stocks that have a higher percentage of the float traded versus a smaller one. And it works. And it leads us to these kinds of stocks that we gave out today and that we have and that we showcase on a weekly basis. So let's look at the small cap positive money lubricant factor. First of all, in this universe, we're looking at the percent change, the dollar change versus yesterday's close. Okay, so when I go to configure, here we are. We're also looking for a stock that's got a max gap of 3 volatility bars, so meaning it's not gapped up enormously, or the gap in any direction is not that large. It has a max of $50, so there's no stock in here that's more than $50. The max position in the range is 50%, so it's at the bottom. It's the bottom half of its yearly range, and from there, we've got a minimum dollar volume to ensure some liquidity. We have the minimum change from yesterday's close set at 0.5%, so it's got to be up at least 0.5% or more in order to make this list. These filters, by the way, are and statements, so they have to satisfy all of these requirements in order to be shown. The min change over the last 30 minutes is 1/3%. The min price is $1. Again, focused on the last 30 minutes, the min position in the 30-minute range is 90, so it's got to be in the top 10% of its range over the last 30 minutes. But even more importantly is this filter right here, which is the minimum position over the last 5 days. So we're trying to build we're trying to build a view, which is the beauty of TradeIdeas. You get to decide. This is an interview process. You have the world of stocks, the universe of stocks lined up to interview for your consideration. And yet we have all of these filters and the real-time capability, the technology behind TradeIdeas set up to filter all these resumes. And as I mentioned, we try to look for behaviors across multiple time frames in order to show a view that brings you closer to a go or no-go decision. In this case, we're looking at the behavior principally on what it looks like over the last 30 minutes and what it looks like over the last 5 days, the last week. So, as I said, in this case, they happen to share the same placement. Over the last week, the stock has got to have been in its 90th percentile or above, so the top 10%. It's in the top 10% of its 5-day range, and it's in the top 10% of its 30-day range. And then it has a custom filter. The filter that I just talked before about the minimum percentage of the float traded is at least 0.5. That's where we are here. So cancel this. So these stocks, as we click on these stocks are going to be in an uptrend over the last 5 days, and as well as the last 30 minutes. let's look at this last one. This is the float. Float on. By the way, let me check if there's any other. I haven't gone through all of these columns, but sometimes we have in our display some of the information is conveyed visually to try to give you a quick view of where the stock is. Before I even see it on the chart, when I come across a column like this, the position in the last 30-minute range, this gives me the value of where the stock is. If I look graphically about where the stock is over the last 30 minutes. So here, the more red it is, the closer it is to the bottom. And in this case, when I hover, it's at 0. When I hover here, it gives me the value at 56. It's in the 56th percentile. And at the bottom here, it's at the top end of its range. Again, as I mentioned before, I like the earnings channel, and I like to see earnings information with respect to the opportunities that I'm looking at. And I like to see when the earning date is for a particular stock. Where it's blank, it's not within the next, I think, 20 days or so. But if it's within 20 days, we start to show the value. And in this case, this is 14 days, 14 and a quarter days before its next earnings report. Whereas this one is going to be reporting earnings within the next 4 days. We have volume today. We have the float, the actual float in terms of the number of shares. Its market cap. Its relative efficiency. I can talk about that in a moment. The position again in its 20-day range. Just because of the way we set up this filter, all these are set up to be at the top end of their 20-day range. And here's a column the relative volume column, perhaps one of the most important columns. It happens to be at the end of this range here, of this display. But for those who are longtime customers of TradeIdeas, you're very familiar with what this filter is. But for those that aren't, I'll explain it real quick. The relative volume is a derived data point. It's one of the unique abilities within TradeIdeas to see information only at TradeIdeas. And what this column is looking at and expressing as a ratio is the amount of volume at this particular point in time compared to what over the average at the same time that the stock trades in terms of volume. So when you see a number like 1 or numbers close to 1, you know that the stock is trading on average for this time of day based on what at this moment in time compared to its overall average over the last 20 or 30 days. When you see a high number like 9.43, it's trading 9, almost 10 times more than it usually trades for this time of day. And that's a very important and a very important information data point when you're looking at certain opportunities. How much volume is there, and how much of that volume is there that is more than what its usual rate of volume is. It's really the difference between a fire hydrant that's always pumping out water. You know it's always pumping out water. But a faucet that turns into a fire hydrant, that's actually unusual, and that's what we like to focus on. The unusual, the statistically unusual. And that's part of the secret sauce. It's part of the value that we provide that our artificial intelligence investing engine is looking at, as well as what we look at. We're always looking at what is outside the normal ranges of everything, whether it's social media mentions, whether it's volume, whether it's price movement, the acceleration of price. What is it about any aspect of a stock that is unusual now based on what its normal behavior is like? And that's what TradeIdeas does. We understand what the normal behavior for every single stock is in the entire universe on the exchange. We know what volume is normal for 10:35 Eastern Time. An hour and 5 minutes after the open. We know what the normal volume is. And so when we see things that are higher than usual for the volume up to that point, we start looking at that. We start paying more attention to that. And we start serving that to our customers if it matches the views that they want to be, that they're asking us to provide. But that's That's what we call derived data. That's the data that we get and that we work with to create something new from. And that's what we put into our views of the market and our top lists. That's what we base a lot of the actions of Holly. That's what Holly's looking at. And it makes for a compelling view of the market, one where you get to see the exceptions and then decide, is this worth acting on? So, as I said, we kind of arrived here at the bottom of the float on. Let's take a quick look at what this window's looking at, and then I'll kind of even open up this to some questions. Maybe more. We'll have Scott come in and maybe give us a little break, talk about some of the offers, and then I'll take questions, and we'll kind of go through how to create some strategies. We'll look at what you like to see, and we'll talk about any of these opportunities here that could have been trades of the week, and that may very well be trades of the week for next week. So float on has got a simple set of filters being applied against the entire universe here. In this case, it still has a maximum gap of 3 bars, 3 volatility bars. It's got a max price of 1,000, and it's got a min price of $1. Okay. So there's a lot that could be in here. In fact, the list is quite long. So what this window really does in terms of keeping your attention is how is it sorted, because it's such a long list. There's so many stocks that meet this criteria that this is really focused on what are the stocks that have a float that is being actively churned and therefore has more energy in its movement than stocks with a smaller percent of the float traded. These are stocks that are making waves. So let's look at the Cure here, Q-U-R-E. This stock is making waves downward. It's almost an amplification of wherever the stock is moving. And we have this color-coded to show you how things are, if it's red, it's guiding down. If it's green, it's gliding up. And with such a large, I should say, percent of the flow traded, the movements of that stock can be quite amplified, enough to make a momentum, trade or fade, but with momentum on your side. Here's Fitbit. Let's take a look at Fitbit. Fitbit looked like someone tied its shoelaces here. Right? So, again, that's a little bit of, hopefully you've learned at least a little bit something about a column I've either talked about, or certainly, most importantly, the way in which we find trades of the week. And looking under the hood, I've kind of talked again about the potential energy of stocks and how we define potential energy. And it's all about this idea of float. How much pie is there to serve people who are asking for a slice? And the smaller the pie, the larger the percentage then of people wanting to get a piece of that, who ask for a slice, so to speak. And then again, we've talked about some of the various data points that go into the views that we're looking at once we've created the universe. So we'll take a little pause here. Let me turn this over to Scott, who's going to come in and talk to you a little bit about the pricing behind TradeIdeas, and I'll come back and we'll kind of go into some
Thanks,
Q&A
David.
and go into this. Go ahead.
Thanks, David. Can you park it on slide number 3 in that in the presentation that you have there?
Back to my peanut.
That's right. So TradeIdeas is a software as a service company. We have 2 primary plans, and those are the monthly or the annual. The core plan is the monthly plan, and the annual plan saves you quite a bit off of that. So the monthly is $99 per month, and that includes all of your real-time data from the exchanges. It includes the charting. Very importantly, it also includes a full hour of one-on-one training called the Hour of Power with our Director of Education, Jamie Hodge. You also get to try out the OddsMaker backtesting tool, which is a portion of what you get when you purchase the OddsMaker and AI. The annual plan includes everything that the monthly plan includes, but is only $888 per year. Both of these plans are automatically recurring, but there's no contract, so you can cancel them anytime you need to. Now the AI channel comes to you via the oddsmaker license, and that's a one-time $1,100 purchase that allows you to find trades that are performing in the market right now. So we have strategies that have been tested and statistically analyzed, and our AI, Holly, has picked those as being winners for the market. With that, you also get full access to our backtesting tool, the oddsmaker. It lets you backtest the entire market without programming. You can use the tools within the oddsmaker to optimize your own strategies. But if you don't want to go through the work, and we make it easy with the oddsmaker, of even optimizing your own strategies, the AI channel is really the refinement of our oddsmaker technology. It has strategies that are already shown to be working in the market now. So something that I'm going to do at the end of the program here today is give you a way to purchase trade ideas and save money today, or if you're already a subscriber, provide you with a path to get the AI at the best possible savings. So I want you to stick around and tune in for that, and David and I will try to answer some of your questions in the next segment. He can just let me know if he wants me to help him out with that portion. But I'll turn it over to him, and we'll get rolling on that section of the webinar. Dave?
Sure, Scott. Yep. You want me to move to the next slide or no?
No, not yet. Go ahead with the presentation.
All right, so back to, let me minimize this. Let me kind of, let me answer some questions here. So we've got one question here. Is there any way to try out the AI before full purchase to get a better idea if it is right for me? Well, it's a great question. One way to get to understand the AI, there's a couple of ways actually. One is attending a webinar where we focus strictly on the AI. It's usually our Wednesday Q&A webinar where we really get into what are the latest innovations, and the latest innovations are always about the AI. We had just had one just prior to this webinar, and those happen on Wednesday. You can send an email to info@TradeIdeas and sign up if you're not getting the emails for that Q&A webinar. The other way is to go to our chat room. The chat room that's moderated by Barry, who does an excellent job of here, I'll click on the channel right now, and it'll pull up. This is just an excellent. When you sign up for Trade Ideas, you are getting a community, an instant community of people learning to trade, and it's a very so you would follow the prompts in here. You would sign up as an attendee, put in a name. The chat room is closed because the markets are not open, but that's the channel. It's from inside TradeIdeas Pro. If you're not already a customer, you can still get to that chat room. Again, send an email. Actually, Scott just put it here in the chat, so I refer you to that.
Yeah, there's
an excellent
also a link to it in the footer navigation of the website.
Yeah, so it's a great way to get to and understand how people are reacting to the day's events and using the technology. And Barry, it's a great story. I mean, you can't find a better employee than one who was first a customer. And Barry was a customer long ago, fell in love with the technology, fell in love with the technology at an earlier evolution, but found so much value out of using the tool that he came to start answering a lot of questions on our forum. And then when we started the chat room, he was a natural fit to take that over. So he is an original customer turned employee. There's no better way to get really the great answers to your questions than going in there. That's the best way because you'll see how they react to the AI in the chat room. Can't stress enough how great that is. A benefit when you before you even sign up for Trade Ideas. So let's see.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions at all about Trade Ideas, please direct it to the questions panel, and we'll try our best to answer that.
Let's see what else. I know that there was a question about Maureen was asking about THRX.
Yeah, in reference to last week's Trade of the Week pick.
I can't remember the particular entries that we were calling on the stock and how it's performed since. nor can I actually, can I go back? I can go back, yeah. Let's see. But again, our trades of the week are always structured around what is the potential entry, what's a good time and good levels to be entering, and what are the levels to be avoiding and to be out of this particular trade. From whatever it is, from when we started. Actually, I'm going back several months here as I scroll back, but where we were, it may have drifted. It looks like it's drifted down for certain over the last couple of days. We clearly mark, where, and that's what you want from every trade idea. You want this idea of simply saying, here's the thought, here's the particular idea. If you understand the context, if you understand the filters that produce this idea, then you understand why it's giving you every stock symbol. But even more importantly, like we do with the AI and like we do with our trade of the week, an idea is only half the equation. It comes with what's the trading plan. And our technology is literally like you'd be hard pressed to drive if there were no road markings, if there weren't lane markings, if there weren't the curbs and and everything else and the lighting that you'd need to effectively get yourself from point A to point B. Lines, lanes, lighting, everything help you with the driving. Even when I can extend the analogy. If you go even farther into what Holly does in the AI, it's literally like using GPS to drive. And we all understand at some level what the guts of satellite communications and coordinates, but our primary value is derived from the interface. And what Holly seeks to do is to literally do the crunching for you in order to give you an analyst's view, an AI-generated investing engine's view of what it thinks is primed for opportunity and alpha every single day. And then you take those ideas, complete with their trading plan as to how long each opportunity should last. In some cases, it's the full session. In some cases, several days. In some cases, it's just half an hour or less, and somewhere in points in between. But you get a sense as to, I now know and have the confidence to make a decision given all the ways that I would know when to get out, what my stop loss is, what my profit target is. It's all in there. And just like the trade of the week, we give you the same information. We're telling you, this is what this is what the averages are. This is what these are the levels that you might consider getting out. These are the levels that start getting in and accumulating a position. And this is what the targets are. So all that is the signage on the road. It's everything you need to navigate. And from there, that's all we can do. Can't make the trade for you.
I think it's probably a good place to kind of let everyone out, and I want to go ahead and reiterate that the trading room that's hosted by Barry Einerson is open every day at 8:45 Eastern, and it's open during market hours, and you can watch Barry trade and also see our alerts and all of these functionality in action, doing actual trades. It's a really excellent thing, and also make sure that you sign up for the daily market recap email. You can do that by going to any of our Trade Ideas pages. I'll put the link in chat here. And what that will do is send you a recap of Barry's daily best trades of the day. Let me grab that link and send it to you. So I'm putting that in the chat right now. It's a really great way to also get an idea of what's going on in the market every day, as Barry has a nice little explanation of what's going on in the market, what his best trades were, and he shows you how he found those trades along with the work he did, or that the AI did, actually, in a lot of the cases, to do the planning for the day. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and if David, if you could go ahead and put the presentation on slide number 4. Something I'd like to do to thank everyone for joining us is provide a way for you to save whether you are currently a Trade Ideas subscriber or not. And you can also go to your handouts panel on your GoToWebinar interface and click on the PDF to download it. You're going to get this slide and the next slide, which includes great information. So this code, QAWEB6, all capitals, is good through Friday at end of business, and it lets you join by saving half off your first month, 20% off your first year, or 30% off of the lifetime AI oddsmaker license. So what that means is you can try Trade Ideas for just $49 for your first month, sign up for the hour of training, and go to Barry's trading room every day and really get a head start on winning in the market. You can, if you're already on the monthly plan and wish to switch to the year, it's a great way to switch over at $710 for the first year, and then you're grandfathered in at the $888 rate for when we raise the price. Also, you can get the oddsmaker, $1,100 value for just $770 lifetime. But here's a better package for you, though. If you go to slide 5 there, David. We're going to be retiring this package after we release version 4 as a standard release rather than the beta release, which we're currently releasing it as, because it's still under development. So this lets you get the AI and the odds maker with a full year of Trade Ideas for just $1,288. That's $700 in savings immediately. That includes everything that we've been talking about. So you can go to that link that's on the PDF you just downloaded, or type in the bit.ly link into your browser. It's a short code that takes you right to a page where you can click through to purchase this. And the page is bit.ly/SAVE700. It is case sensitive, so go to bit.ly/save700 and you get $700 taken off immediately. This combination will most likely be retired before the end of January, depending on when we actually take version 4 out of beta and replace version 3 with it. Again, thanks everyone for coming. Our contact information. You can follow David at Trade Ideas or follow Dan Merkin at Trade Ideas 1. You can find us on Facebook by typing facebook.com/TradeIdeasPro into your browser. Info@TradeIdeas.com is the best way to get any of your questions answered. That goes directly to our support desk. Or you can email Dan, David, or Brad. It's just first name at TradeIdeas.com. Give us a call at the 619 number during normal business hours on the West Coast of the U.S. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thanks for the great presentation, David. There will be a recording of this available. You get an email to that when it is uploaded, along with a reminder of the product code that you can use before Friday to save. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Thanks, David. Hope Dan feels better soon. And we will see you all.
Well, I had a great time. I'm raising my glass to everyone. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, see you all at the next webinar, guys. Bye.